It is always wonderful to have you on and to be on. I have Angie is on with me again this week. I'm going to tell you about how I won't say she abused me. I'll just say she gently moved me into new places. Uh, yeah, let us know that you're on. Put something in the comments. That's how we will know that you're on. But welcome to
Welcome.
Transformation Thursday, decolonizing our thoughts and our theology. Today we are looking at healing through pain and going to power. How do we do new? Is it possible or necessary to do something new? Maybe everything is fine the way it is. Let's chat. Let's talk. I see my cousin Lynn is on. Hey, Lynn. It's good to see you. It's always good to be supported. So last week we talked about spiritual trauma. Tawana was on with us. Angie was on with us. They both shared um, some of their experiences around spiritual trauma. Was not meant to be in any wise in spiritual trauma in its totality, for there are many more evidences and experiences that people had of spiritual trauma. We looked at that. We looked at the pain of that. And this week, I think first I want to start the way I always try to do is to say that anything that I am talking about today does not mean that I have not been guilty of what I'm talking about. I think it's real important that I say that because for so many years I did operate under a theology that I don't necessarily operate under now because I have a broader spectrum of education and of lived experiences.
Life.
So I am not knocking or tearing anybody down. I want it to be very well known that what I teach today is not what I have always taught. It is what I have lived and learned as I have moved through this journey called life. I also want to say this is not an indictment against the Black church. I am where I am in large part because of what I've learned and done and experienced in the Black church. I talk about the Black church because that is my experience. I cannot talk about other church experiences. I can only talk about mine. And I also want to say that when I talk about the Black church, am I talking about Black people only? Or am I talking more about a liberation theology, Black thought that has its roots in the Black church? And it doesn't mean that it is exclusive of anybody, but it does mean I center myself in that place because I am a Black woman. I come out of the Black church. I'm part of the Black church experience. And so I can only talk about my experience and who I am. So as we move into today's talk, is looking at pausing and breathing for a minute. Angie said, "Can we just breathe for a minute?" And it's funny because I was like, well, I kind of thought I knew where I was going. But, love language helps you to hear what somebody else is saying. And even when you pull against it, it is okay to pull against it because that pull may just be saying, take a breath. And so I took a breath as we have laughed. I can tell you all that she and I have talked several times this week, and each time I had to laugh and tell her, now you know you got to try to keep me on task because I'm not really clear about what it is the task is this week. But we give honor to God and glory to God because it's a good thing when we have an idea, but we don't always know. As long as we stay close to the cross and under the drippings of the blood, that we can hear God telling us where to go and what to do. And it's really all about love. And what does love look like? How does love respond? Today, we're going to talk something about encountering people and seeing that we probably have more similarities than we have differences, and not focusing on the differences. So I want to start off with this. Have you ever walked into a room that you're invited to, a room that you were invited to for a reason, and when you walk in the room, you feel like the conversation stops? Nothing feels inviting about that room. Suddenly it looks like people are looking at you like you crazy. And there's just this uncomfortableness that comes over you. Let me know in the comments, have you ever had that experience? I'm sure you all are commenting. I just want to don't be the first to comment.
I see one of my babies watching, girl. Go ahead and comment. I know you have. Don't have me tell on you.
I'm not going to call you out or anything. I just want to know, am I the only one? Hey, okay. So it takes my son, say, yep, I have. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I just want to know, have you ever had that experience where you were invited into the room? You walked into the room and yes, you did belong in the room, but people look at you as, no, you don't. Or why are you here? Or who are you?
Who invited you?
Right. Who invited you? Why are you? Okay. All right. So I can see a lot of you are shy. All right. No problem. Just taking it in. I got that. Okay. So let me turn this around. Have you ever been in a room where somebody walked in? You didn't know them, but something inside of you just said, the could have been, and Lord knows I have. The could have been, they don't look like they belong in the room.
What was that?
Maybe they're a little loud. And okay. And yes, I was invited for quite. Okay, so hopefully there is not a delay. And many times it was good for good reason. Or whatever the may have been, they may have come in the room with somebody who did harm to you. They don't know you, you don't know them, but just because of who they're with, you may have said, what do we do with that? How we get beyond that? Have you ever had the experience where you said to somebody or about somebody, not necessarily to them?
Just felt that moment.
That moment. And then maybe later you got to sit and talk with them and discovered your maybe really was unfounded. You don't really, and sometimes we say and we don't really know where it comes from. Maybe they represent somebody that we do to, whatever it is. Have you had those experiences? So Angie, you on the spot. You get to tell me about your experiences.
Ooh. Actually, my experience that comes to mind instantly in the church. We were in church, and y'all know I cannot. Well, you don't know, but I cannot see. We in church. I lean over and say, "Who that singing the solo?" Because vision gone. So we saw this brother, bald head, checked his bill, and my daughter was like, "Is that so and so?" And I was like, he wouldn't be in nobody's church, No, that's not so and so. And when I met this brother who was absolutely friendly, he's on the steward board, beautiful family, but he looked so much like this person that it took him nearly a year to get past my oomph. And a beautiful, beautiful person, kind, love God, love God's people. But that instant trauma that I brought into the church with me shut me down from knowing that this kind person, this helpful person, this loving person, that just that instant, my own trauma that I brought with me. And I have to recognize that. I don't know if I did then, but he was consistent, thank God. And I got to know him and his family well. But that instant feeling can sometimes stop you from getting to know someone that God has sent your way.
Amen. Tawana says, and I had to learn to be honest with myself when it was my issue. Yikes.
Yeah. And it's always yikes when you have to turn the finger back to yourself.
I have learned that more times than not, it is my issue. Right.
Absolutely.
Right. And I have learned that it has been my issue many a time. I have issues around feeling safe. I know where they come from. I know why they are there. But I have issues around feeling safe. And when you are a pastor who is sitting in the front of the church and you are watching people come in the door, that oomph comes up a whole lot of times for me. Because I know what the trauma is about feeling safe. And I know I can name it now. I know it's a safe thing for me. It really is. It's there. It's a safety thing. And so when that oomph walks in the door, I have to breathe. I have to take a deep breath because I have to say, okay, this is you. It has to be you because you don't know who they are. You don't know nothing about them, but it's you. Breathe. And so it is being made aware that sometimes and many times it really is our stuff coming up. So when we talk about differences, when we focus on the difference, we will maintain distance. And distance will help us to ignore people because we're focused on the difference. When we focus on the similarities, it will take down the fences of difference. So, what are some of the ways that we can focus on the similarities when the oomph comes up?
For me, when we talk about differences and, in the disability community, we use it's one of those coin phrases like, won't he do it in the church? More alike than different. That is one of the things that we say over and over to people, that my son is more like your son than different. Yes, there are some differences, but they are more alike. And the best example I can give is we had some kids over and they weren't our usual kids. He has certain cousins and friends that he knows and play with him and they know him. So we had some extras. And, I knew what was going on. I saw him. One little boy grabbed the other little boy like, come here. You see how Malachi? And I was like, what you say? And he was like, nothing. I said, no, yeah, you did. I said, it's okay. Because he do that funny, doesn't he? I said, but he just talks a little differently than you do. But he's in the same grade as you are. I bet you he can spell the same words that you can spell. You know what I mean? Like I pointed out all the ways that he was just a
Mm-hmm.
9-year-old, just like you are. And by doing that, the whole mood change, the whole vibe change. Even the other little kids were like, yeah, if you can understand your sister talk, you can understand Malachi talk. And all the other little kids just jumped in and all began to compare their similarities as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to what was different about them. And if we carry that through life, sometimes it will allow us or cause us to take a beat before we say,
Or at least to be aware that the because sometimes that comes out of me before, but be aware that it is inside of us. And so how do
Mhm.
we, I think you answered my next question, Angie, is how do we get past um the differences to the similarities? And you did a beautiful example of what that's like. Of first of all, you didn't get angry. You just said, "Yeah, you're right," and this and that, and it's trying to learn how to relate to and respond to, even when the questions come up, and not getting defensive.
This makes me think. I took this course through DHS here, which is, do y'all call it DHS in California? But like the county child protective services, the
Something
place
like
that
that.
does all
Yeah.
that. Okay. So they have this program that goes state to state called Bridges Out of Poverty, right? And there's this film that they rely heavily on. And after the film, the talk was basically not how to put money in some of these people's pockets to bridge them out of poverty. It was how to change who they are because of what poverty looks like.
Hmm.
And it was one of those rooms where I walked in, I was invited, but everybody said, And so I gave them a reason to say, I was like, why do these people have to act and think like you? Maybe culturally they are comfortable with mom in the house and daughter in the house and grandma. Maybe that's not about poverty. Maybe
Hmm.
that's about family. And so often what we do is we put our expectations, our desires, our goals on other folk and expect them to live thusly. And that's
Hmm.
not fair. Working in disability, I myself have certain goals for my son, and they will change when he decides to have goals for himself, right? But
Hmm.
I live in urban city, Oklahoma City. But I also serve people out in the country.
Hmm.
Maybe a full and whole life to them is Sam learning how to work the farm, the land, and wave at his neighbors as he goes by. Maybe he doesn't need to go to culinary, all these programs they make for our kids to make them feel like they are, productive. So I could go in and say, oh no, you're not going, our kids could go to college now. Don't you want him to go to college? Maybe that's not the life that people in rural who have for generations learn to work their land and build their lives that way. So we have to remove my expectation for you,
Hmm.
right? I think we said earlier, loving people the way we want to be loved is not always the answer. We have to love people the way they need to be loved, because
Right.
what feels loving to me and makes me feel loved may not do the same for you.
Right. Now that's powerful. Loving people the way we want to be loved, or loving them the way they need to be loved. And I am learning that lesson every day with a 16-year-old in my house. Help me, Jesus. And it's a good lesson, and it's a difficult lesson, because I know life this way, but he sees life this way. And I'm like, have you lost your ever loving mind? And it's not that he's lost his ever loving mind. The reality of it is I'm losing my mind because I want him to see life my way. And I've really had to get in touch with that. Is that he sees life the way he sees life. And he won't feel love if the only way he can feel love is if he sees it from my eyes. And so I've had to really work on readjusting how, it's like how you respond, how I hear, because what I hear is not what's being said. I have to hear what's not being said. And that's real hard when you have pretty much quieted somebody because they're not seeing it from your eyes. And so having to totally back up, take a breath, breathe in deep. And so as we've been doing these broadcasts and talking about spiritual trauma and all of these other things and exclusion, I realized that I'm excluding somebody in my own house. And how do I turn around? What do I do? How do I stop dead in my tracks and really turn and really seek to see what does love sound in this moment? And how do I love him the way he needs to be loved, not the way I think love ought to be? Because there is no transformation if there is no willingness to stop and figure out what does new look like here. And new is something we've never seen. So how do I know I'm doing new? And how do I know new is necessary? And how do I even know new is possible? I know it's necessary because what I'm doing don't work. Okay, number one, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. It is necessary because what I'm doing don't work. But now, what do I have to do? Go ahead, Angie.
I was going to say the point that I wanted to make was that not only that, but you've done 16-year-old boy before. So not only is it different from the way you view things, but it's different than the way his dad viewed things.
Right.
Like we have to see people as individuals. I tell doctors all the time, you could be an expert in boys who are 9. You could be an expert in cancer or Down syndrome. You could go down the list of what he has. But I am an expert in Malachi because he is all those things plus some. And so, I love to say I could take a little girl and mold her and shape her and send her back to you all in a pretty package. But it is not the same for every young girl. We have to see people as individuals and honor them as such. It is not my place. God didn't call me to judge you. He ain't even called me to mold you and feel. He's called me to love you and support you, no matter what that looks like.
Right. And no matter what you look like, and no matter what you bring to the room, and you may bring into the room an attitude, and I don't know where that attitude came from. And so rather than respond to the attitude, what does love look like when you walk in with an attitude? And I want to say, oh, really? You know where you can go, right? But what does love look like when you come into the room with an attitude? And can love be a transforming place? And how do I find that love inside of me? And it can't be the way I want it to be. Can I look beyond the attitude and go, hey, how you doing today? How you feeling today?
That's it.
And can I look past the Yeah, I'm all right. Okay, would you like some water? You know, because on in because if I understand that maybe the place you walked into where I am represents a place that you've been traumatized before, you're going to respond believing that you're going to get trauma again. And if I don't give you trauma, that may stop you in your tracks and say, what? And so if I can just take a breath for a moment and say, what does love look like right now? Not what does love look like? I raised a boy, he was 16, but this ain't the 16-year-old that's in my house today. So I can't do what I did. And that's one of the lessons I've had to learn is I'm trying to do things the way I've done them before. And it's like, it don't work. It ain't working. And so if it's not working, then stop.
Mhm. 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 I think you asked the question, what does love look like? How do we show love in these situations, right? So for me recently, because I am definitely in a season of transition, it was very clear. God said, sit down, be quiet, and just be. And so at this place, I am learning spiritually to honor myself first, right? So if I
Mm-hmm.
can see your wall go up and I know that, and I just take the beat and honor myself, and then I can show you true love because we traumatize people when we ting, give them that look, you know what I mean? And you can spot BS a mile away. We
Mm-hmm.
know when people are high hanging, you know what I mean? So, and you have to know your place. I may not be able to respond to sister with that, hey. If she give me that, I'll be like, oh, okay. But hopefully she got some kids because I could, love on a baby. And then maybe that's the way to reach her. Because now the next time their kids come into place, they're gonna be like, where's Miss Angie? Or you know what I mean? So we cannot push our way through
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that main road, right? Sometimes you have to find what matters to that person and what they care about most and show them that you can care about those same things, and then we'll meet in the middle because we both care about the kids or we both care about the community, or since I see you struggling, you know what I mean? Show that I can help you in those places where you need it the most without judgment.
Right, right. Pammy says people keep trying to define love, but it's already been defined for us in First Corinthians. We just need to focus on the word, and 100%. We need to focus on the word. What we're trying to do now is keep it in the word and talk about, are there places where we get to a place where we get we're not sure of what love looks like right then. And Tawana says sacrifice and pushing ourselves back so that the God in us comes forward, um, and being real clear that we don't understand everything, we don't understand everybody, but God didn't call us to understand, and God didn't call us to judge.
That's
God
right.
called us to love. And love sometime, I was talking to one earlier, I said, I hate to say how many churches I've pastored, and when we have the time of fellowship, and I would say to them, I would be very clear, go to the people who have stood up. You got a chance to see each other afterwards, but they would still lead the people. The people who came in, you don't know why they came in. It doesn't make any difference why. The fact that they came in the door, and they would still go to each other and they would fellowship with each other, but rarely
Mm-hmm.
would anybody go to the person. Now, I always did. I always came out the pulpit and went to the people who were standing up and let them know that they were welcome. But rarely do people do that. And it was hard to get people to get out of your comfort zone. and just go say hello.
And the most troubling piece about that for me is usually the visitor that does not get approached is the one who is truly a random visitor. If I bring my cousin and I'm a regular member, everybody gonna
Right,
say, "Oh, this your cousin, hi, cuz," right? But
right,
that one who was alone when they walked in those doors, looking for something, is the one who usually misses that hug that I've told somebody before. Those people, that hug your neighbor, shake your neighbor hand. Sometimes that's the only love and touch people get all week. So you
right.
come in there in this empty place, and then you watch all this love around you that never touched you.
Right, right, and it's Pammy says we need to extend our love beyond our comfort zone. And when it comes to hugging someone, I would always ask them, "Are you comfortable with a hug or handshake? It's whatever's comfortable with you."
Mhm.
Because I have this thing of safety, hugs are not always comfortable for me, and so I am conscious to that. And so I would always ask, but I'd always let them know that, they were welcome and glad to see them. And and it's whether it's in church or whether it's you see somebody looking distressed. I've seen somebody in the grocery store looking distressed at the vegetable aisle, and I've asked them, are you okay? Are you looking for something? And one lady told me, "I'm okay. My husband just died last week." And I just
Mm.
stopped with her and I said, "Do you mind if I just stop with you right now and just, can I help you with your groceries? Can I help you?"
Mhm.
And she said, "I just had to get out of the house." And it
Hmm.
would have been easier for me to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and keep walking.
Mhm.
Um, but I couldn't, and I couldn't. And so when we talk about new, sometimes new is just going to people and saying hello or welcome this morning, whether if it's in church or whatever it is, or moving past that uncomfortable feeling in us when somebody walks in the room that don't look like us and don't act like us, and they don't wear their earrings in the same place I wear mine. I wear mine in my ears, they wear theirs in their nose, all of those things. Um, Not focusing on the differences, but realizing that there are more similarities in humanity than there are differences. And so when we talk about coming through 2021, some people are coming through 2021 and all they want to do is get back to normal. All they want to do is get back to church. All they want to do is just do what they were doing before. Can we just get back to normal? And for me, my question to God is, what does new look like?
Because
What
I'm ready for
does
something new. Yes.
what does new look like? What are you calling me to do new? How do we build healing, healthy communities that don't look at labels on people or the skin or the earrings or how you wear your hair or whatever it is, but just see people as people. That's, as Pammy says, season of transformation. What does
Yes.
that mean? And where do we individually, how do we go into our own selves and see what things are not working? If I'm worried about something constantly, maybe there's something else I need to grab a hold on. If I'm angry about something constantly, maybe there's something I need to grab a hold on. If I'm having arguments with family members constantly, just maybe it's not them. Maybe it is me. Because if I'm engaging in it continuously, then it's not about them, it's about me. And what does new look like? And where do we get to new, and how do we find our place in that? And what does the word say about it? you know, in this place called Liberation Theology, what does the word say about how do I get to new? Is there a way to get there? Is there a way to get on the healing path? And I want to submit to you that there is. I like to use the voices of women in the Bible, and how did they get to a new place? How did they come to a new place? And I want to just take the story of Rachel and Leah for just a moment. The story of Rachel and Leah. Rachel's dad gave her to the man who, Leah's dad gave her to the man who loved Rachel. There are many different stories in there and many different sermons in there. And what I just want to take one piece out of it, that as she was rejected and as she was trying to fit her way into this man's life, and as she kept having these babies, and each time she said, oh, this time he's going to love me, and oh, okay, and this time I know he's going to love me, and this time I know I'm going to be worth something to somebody here. And then it came the time where she got pregnant, and Leah did something that was earth-shattering in her own life. Leah said, this time I'm going to praise the Lord. And she named her baby Judah. And what I want to say is we got to come to a this time moment. I had to come to it with my grandson with just this steadily push and pull and trying. And what was I pushing and pulling? I was trying to get him to see things my way. And then the other day I came to this time. In other words, this time I got to stop. And this is the time of transformation. This is the time that I got to do it new, but I don't know what new is. So I got to go before the Lord. And this time I'm going to praise God. I'm not doing it for anybody else. I'm not doing it to make anybody like me. I'm doing it because this time, it's got to be the time I got to hold on to God. This time, I got to turn to the word. This time, I got to turn to the altar. And so the next time somebody different comes into my space and I get this this time, I got to move past that and say, hey, how are you doing? My name is Carolyn. What is your name? The next time I walk into a room and folks look at me like I don't belong in, that's not usually my issue. But when we get to that time, this time, I'm going to walk into the spirit that God has me walk in and know that I'm in that room because God chose me. But more over than that, building a community that is a healing community, that is a whole community that does things differently. It is not about the institutional church. It is about the church inside of us. When do we get to this time? And sometimes this time has to happen 20 times. And sometimes this time is I got it this time, but I didn't get it this time. And so I have to go into another this time and do a Leah move this time. That if we're going to come out of 2020 differently, if we're going to be different, not in the church institutional, because the church institutional has got to be the church individual. Each one get one, each one win one. This time, the people that I don't get along with, that rub me the wrong way, they are in my life to teach me something. This time I'm going to learn the lesson. And they may always remain the same, but this time I'm going to praise the Lord because I'm going to learn the lesson. For me, it's not for them. And it's about, if there's going to be transformation, it's got to be about me. And there has got to be a this time moment. There's got to be. And when this time comes up, and even when I don't make it, or I do to this time and I got to this time this way this time, but the next time I don't make it, there's still an opportunity to do this time again. Angie?
This is definitely a this time moment. I'm sorry. He's back there eating. This is definitely, let me say that differently, my this time moment and my family's this time moment. And I accept and respect that it is not everyone's. But what we have to do is to learn to see the individual and not just member A tie the, like, what do I need? What does my spirit need? And it may not look the same. And so my challenge and my charge to you, because I'm looking at who's in here, are people who are in positions of leadership, no matter what they look like, is that when the me who has learned to honor herself comes to you and says, I love what I get here, but this is what I am missing. For you, instead of for you to just, well, that's not what we do here. Let's look at it. Let's see if that's a need that can be met for me there in this home. We call it I think medical home, but in my church home, in my church community, in my church family. You know what I mean? And will you come to be able to hear me and say, is there a place for that here? Can I feed that piece of you here? Can I just find another group of 2 or 3 members who might be in that same place here? Everything does not have to be corporate, right? But if you can just take that, maybe I'm not the only one who has this struggle, this need, this desire, but it may not be for everybody. And I get that is a hard place to be, especially in the Black church, because the Black church is very corporate. And if I come to you, my pastor, my sister, the leader of the church, I know you can't make that decision within yourself. And what often happens is how we spoke about, your grandson. He is a completely different individual, yet he is not your son. So when we go to the elders and the leaders of the church, who this is the way we've done it, and that's what we did when my daughter was in the YPD, and now that my granddaughter in the YPD now, why we can't do it the same way? Because your daughter didn't have Facebook, Twitch, and TikTok and all that. We are called to meet people where they are as the church, because we are the church, right? But if you're not willing to meet me, who is already within the walls where I am, how are we going to extend the vision? We have to be open to different.
And sometimes we got to step outside of the walls and do what God is calling us to do in another wall. Sometimes we've got to do that. We are called to serve the present age. And sometimes the vision that God has given me, if it doesn't work within the walls where I am, then it means that I've got to break out of those walls. And sometimes we have to do what we're doing right now, church without walls. But how do we take the best of what we've had, the fellowship and all the things, because it's important, and then break out the walls? You got to trust that God's going to lead you how to build it, because sometimes you cannot build the new inside the old. You cannot put new wine in old wineskins.
I'm feeling that we need to learn first to trust the God in us, to trust that God can speak to me directly. Because what happens is often I trust your message from God to me more than I trust him speaking to me directly. We don't always need somebody else to filter his word to you. And I'm not saying that there is not a place for ministry and for prophecy and for you to teach me. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that after class is over, I could go on to the teacher, God, myself, and go over what was taught to me and get those little nuggets that are just for me. But I have to learn. We are not taught often to trust that for ourselves, because we are
Right.
often taught that the preacher and the leaders know
Right.
better than we do. So we
Right.
cannot go outside the walls because we scared that maybe what I heard ain't really what I heard. Maybe that's not really what God want me to do. So the
Right.
first thing again is to honor yourself and your relationship, your personal relationship with God.
Right. Right. And that can be that this time moment. This time, let me get to the cross. Jesus, keep me near the cross.
We
Keep
have
me
to make it
near the
personal
cross,
again.
because it has to be relational. It has to be about relationship. It doesn't mean that if I take an idea to somebody who is in leadership and they don't hear it or they don't understand it, it doesn't mean that God didn't call me to do it. It doesn't
Yes.
mean I have to take myself totally out of that church, but maybe I go to the community center and I begin doing
That's
that
it.
vision there, because
That's
maybe
it.
that is where it needs to be. But it is understanding that that there is a place wherever God has gifted you, your gift will make room for you. And whatever that gift is to be comfortable in that gift. And the one thing that we do, I don't think we do enough of, is teaching personal relationship with God. That yes, God does talk to you. You know, one of the members where I pastored, she said, God told me that we need to go back to church. I said, well, then you need to do that. She said, but you're not telling the people to go back to church. I said, because that's not what God told me. She said, well, why did God tell me to go to church and God didn't tell you to go to church? I said, because maybe God wanted to meet you at the church. So maybe you need to go and see what God is telling you
That's
to
right.
do. I'm not telling you God didn't tell you to do that. I'm telling you God didn't tell me to do that.
And
And,
and see, if I was this sister in that place, what I want to see us get to is God told me to go back to the church, right? I'll go to my pastor and the pastor say, well, that ain't what God told me. I want us as people to go get back to the place, or get to the place where then he say, God, is that really what you told me? He say yes, and you go because you trust what he said to you. He didn't say go to church and meet Reverend C there. He said go to church.
Right. And that's what I told. She said, well, why would God tell me to go to church and all of us need to come to the altar? I said, did God say all of us need to come to the altar? Or did God say God wanted to meet you at the altar? I said, I
I'll
think that's
unlock the
what you need
doors
to be
for
clear
you.
about.
That's
Right.
it.
I'll see that somebody let
Yes,
you in. You know, I said,
absolutely.
because what I want you to understand is I am not denying the fact that God told you
That's what he
something.
told you.
And if
That's
that's what
right.
God told you, I get it. I don't have no problem with it. And she said, but as a pastor, you need to give the word. I said, no, I don't need to give that word, because that's not the word that God gave me. And now, you know, then right after that, they shut all churches down. I'm like, yeah, well, you figure it out.
I'm glad you got in there that last time.
Listen, I was just very clear,
Yeah.
but it is understanding who is God to us, and where are things not working for us, and where they're not working for us. Before I look outside of me, what's going on inside of me? And being able to find how God meets us there. Now, we have gone way over the time we normally go. Um, uh, Please share your comments and your thoughts with us. We'd love to hear them as we just continue to do the thing that God is leading us to do in this season. Is how does transformation come, and looking at moving from pain through pain, not from pain to power, because from
But you
pain
got
to
to go
power
through it.
for me denotes that that's a one jump thing.
Mm-hmm.
Moving through pain into power, because sometimes we got to sit in the pain in order to name the pain. We're not through naming it. We just kind of taken a breathing moment in here, and I don't know how much breathing we did, but we're taking a breathing moment in this. And so, but we'd love to hear from you. Remember that we will be here every Thursday. It is about building community, looking at what does that mean and how do we build healthy communities, starting with ourselves first.
And
Amen.
Sister Pam, whole person ministry. I like that.
That's it. Yes,
I
Pam,
like that.
we hear you.
Whole
Because
person ministry.
there is nothing such as we deal with the spirit and somebody else deals with the body and somebody else deals with the mind. It's body, mind, and spirit are all in one place.
Yes.
And that is whole person ministry. And we have to see ourselves as whole people. We are spiritual, emotional, mental, physical beings in this life. And the word does speak to that. And how does God speak to it? And how does God speak to us and showing us how do we love? How do we love those who don't look like us, those who don't love like us, those who don't believe like us, those who don't dress like us, those who don't even talk like us? How do we love? And I promise you, there is a difference in language between being 68 and 16. And there's a whole different dialect that goes on there. But it will love make you reach for the tools that'll help you speak in tongues so that everyone you are talking to can hear the love that you are sharing.
That's it.
That is our word for today. That is our broadcast for today. Be blessed in the Lord.
Ashe. Amen.
Amen. Ashe. Goodbye.